worst matchup, and then he had a much clearer path to the finals. He did beat his worst matchup in Teosteel, and in a certain sense, he was discounting the fact that there was a second copy of that in the top 8. Which is Erik Smith's deck. I think it's because if you look at Erik Smith's road from top 8 to the finals, it is brutal for him.
Yeah, so both players resolve mulligans, and Greg Hatch leads off with an island, Erik Smith with a mountain. Neither player has a 1 drop. And let's see, Greg Hatch here is are we gonna see a Tidebinder Mage or a Frostburn Weird? And there's the Frostburn Weird.
So one of the best cards for Erik in this matchup is going to be Fanatic of Mogus. It's one of the ways that red can win because blue's actually great at constructing walls here that red has a decently hard time getting through. So what Erik does oftentimes do in this matchup is just really become this big devotion deck. It gets lots of symbols onto the table, then they'll like play a Perforos and activate it a few times, or maybe play a Fanatic of Mogus for something like 7 or 8.
Yeah, because that's the thing. The mono blue devotion deck doesn't really have a lot of good ways to deal with permanents. So just being able to get a bunch of red mana symbols in play, you could 1 or 2 Fanatic of Moguses could win the game on its own. So
Erik was able to answer the Frostburn Weird with a Burning Tree Emissary into Mizium Mortars, but Greg responded with a Night Veil Spectre. Erik, with an interesting decision, he could choose between Mortarsing the Spectre and playing Hammer Perforos, and he opted to go with Hammer.
Yeah, well, I think because he has a Fanatic in his hand, he really wants to try to get a lot of damage next turn. So Fanatic can come down, it can deal 5 damage to Gregory, and then he can attack with
11,
both the Burning Tree and the Fanatic of Mogus. So I think he's okay with getting hit with the Night Veil Spectre and just getting a random card off the top of his deck. The only scary card there would be a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx.
I mean, yeah, if Greg hits a Nykthos, it's really big. But you're right, but it was a complete miss. It was Ash Zealot, no help there. If the Frostburn Weird was still in play, no, never mind. Greg doesn't have a Nykthos in the main deck. I said if he did, then he would have to be a little more worried. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so Greg just doesn't have a 4th land drop, just has to play a Frostburn Weird, and here's a Boros Reckoner here, so it's going to add more mana symbols to the devotion count, and making Fanatic of Mogus even more dangerous here.
So Erik Smith doesn't have a 4th land himself, but actually Boros Reckoner has a very safe swing here because if Greg blocks, the Boros Reckoner will take down the Frostburn Weird.
Yeah, so it looks like Greg does have a Rapid Hybridization in his hand. He's debating whether or not he wants to just use it here on the Boros Reckoner. Again, giving Erik Smith a 3/3 isn't that big of a deal when you have a Frostburn Weird in play. So let's see if Greg decides to just conserve his life total a little bit and get those 3 mana symbols off the table.
Yeah, well, I think he has to. Yeah, you're right. When you say the mana symbols, right now this Fanatic of Mogus is dealing 8. This is exactly how Erik wants to win these games.
Yeah, so it looks like Greg is going to cast Rapid Hybridization here, and I like this play too. It gets the card off the table, and again, a 3/3 creature isn't really that relevant if you have Frostburn Weird in play.
Now Greg Hatch does have a Thassa in his hand as well, which is why he played the Frostburn Weird first last turn, so that the Thassa would be a 5/5 on the turn he cast it. We see Night Veil Spectre hits, and it gets a Perforos.
So pretty fortunate there for Erik, because not only did he hit a card that Greg couldn't cast, but it takes another non-land card off the top of his deck, and Erik is stalled on 3 mana right now.
However, Greg hits what is usually his trump card here. It's Master of Waves with a devotion of 6. It is 14 power on the board. Greg immediately usually needs an overloaded Mortars or a Change to the Rocks to have any game against this.
Oh, wow. And the 4th land Erik did draw was a Temple of Triumph, so that's going to come into play tapped. He's pretty far away from being able to overload Mizium Mortars there to deal with those Elemental tokens. So Greg is going to get to untap here, and let's see what he decides to attack with.
It's very close to lethal if it isn't already.
So let's see here. We have 12 creatures. Does he have a Tidebinder Mage as well?
Well, he has 9 attackers, and there's only 2 blockers, so that's 7 to getting through. And
the Frostburn Weird.
Yeah, so Erik to have enough blockers is going to have to sack a land to hammer a Perforos.
Yeah, which, again, I think
you'd really prefer not to do.
You got to do what you got to do. But he looks like he does have the Tidebinder Mage, so yeah, I think this is going to be lethal here.
So Tidebinder Mage taps down the Frog. Now even the hammer activation will not be enough.
Is he going to hack with Frostburn Weird as well? Let's see. 2 creatures block.
I think if he swung Master and Weird, it's lethal. He can Master's a free swing here if it's lethal.
Yeah, if he attack with the Master and the Frostburn Weird, I think it's lethal.
Yeah.
But
either way, it'll probably be lethal next turn.
Yeah, either way, it's probably going to be lethal. So Erik is forced to sack a land. and he blocks an elemental, 2 elementals. It gets a 3/3 Golem token in play, and Greg Hatch in really good position here to win this game. A chain to the rocks. It gets revealed from Eric's. That's really, really lucky for Greg. That was that was one of Eric's only outs to master the waves there. So wow, really lucky draw there from Greg. And Greg Hatch defeats Eric Smith 3-2. Very, very fortunate there. It looked pretty good for Eric at one point. I mean, he had a lot of red mana symbols in play. He had a plan with Fnatic, and but unfortunately for him, he stalled in 3 lands, and Gregory just drew that master waves just in time.
Yeah,